Well, WikiLeaks turning its sights from the government to banks, thanks to a former Swiss banker who has turned whistleblower. Rudolf Elmer gave WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange 2 disks with information containing hundreds of offshore bank accounts. Elmer claims that the disks have details on the accounts of 2,000 high-net-worth individuals and corporations, including approximately 40 politicians from around the world. Elmer says these corporations and individuals are using the bank's secrecy as a screen to avoid paying taxes. Assange says once the information is vetted, there will be full disclosure.
Once we've looked at the data, assuming it's not anomalous, assuming it's like everything else we receive, yes, there will be full revelation.
And joining us now is Johann Hari, columnist for The Independent in London. Johann, it's been widely believed for as long as there have been Swiss bank accounts that they've been used for the wealthy, for celebrities, and for politicians to hide their money from taxes, or drug dealers to hide their money, or stolen money to be hidden. It's just never been able to be confirmed because of the obvious integrity of the secrecy laws in Switzerland. What would the implications be of being able to confirm what has widely been broadly believed with a list of names and bank accounts?
Well, this has actually been growing for quite a long time, Dylan. Now it's reached a level it has never been at before. The International Monetary Fund says that 1/3 of all the money in the world is currently held in tax havens. That's a tiny number of rich people stashing away massive sums of money that rightly belong to the American taxpayers. It's a way of transferring wealth. The Government Accountability Office in the US says of the top 100 corporations in America, 82 of them are using tax havens. These are some of the biggest names in America. Let me just tell you some of them. Apple, Bank of America, Best Buy, ExxonMobil, FedEx, Kraft Foods, McDonald's, Safeway, Target. I could go on. These are companies that can only operate because ordinary Americans pay their taxes. They maintain the roads, they pay for the police, they pay for the fire departments. But those companies are refusing to pay their share. Everyone watching this show pays their taxes, and if they don't, they go to prison. That is not true of the richest people in America, and it is not true of corporations in America at the moment. And this is a chance to really blow the whistle on that. This is a chance to expose the people who depend on your taxes but don't want to pay anything back.
And how critical is drawing the bridge between the broad understanding that wealthy individuals and corporations that you described use tax havens to basically assert the burden of police, teachers, snowplows, education on the poorer and middle-class people in America? What are the implications of being able to tie names and bank accounts to those people?
Well, it's huge. If you look at what's been happening here in Britain over the past few months, you get an example of what I think could happen in America. In Britain, 6 months ago, it was revealed that Vodafone, one of our biggest cell phone companies, owed £6 billion to the British Exchequer, that they were just refusing to pay. They were claiming that their business runs through a post office box in Luxembourg, and it was complete rubbish. The previous government, the Labour government, had been pursuing that case. When the Conservative government came to office, they effectively cancelled the tax bill. Indeed, the head of our equivalent to the Internal Revenue Service apologised for, as he put it, being too black and white in interpreting the tax law. Now, that was in itself an outrage at a time when we're having massive cuts here in Britain. That £6 billion, for example, could have covered the entire cost of the cuts in housing benefit that mean that 200,000 of the poorest people in London are being driven out of their homes. Even the Conservative mayor here, Boris Johnson, calls that Kosovo-style social cleansing. But something really interesting happened. Once that information was revealed, once people knew how much money this corporation was bilking us for, was ripping us off for, a protest movement began that has really changed the way the debate goes in Britain. A group of ordinary citizens, nurses and teachers who were facing having their jobs taken away, said, we're not going to put up with this. If you want to sell things on our streets, you pay our taxes. So they announced a day and they urged everyone in Britain to go to their nearest Vodafone store and physically shut it down, stop people going in and out. In 52 cities across Britain, Vodafone stores were shut down. It was the biggest news story on the BBC. It was the biggest news story on our best-selling newspaper, the Daily Mail, quite a conservative newspaper that nonetheless supported it. So this is and this movement has only grown since then. It's been massive. Very conservative parts of Britain, a place called Tunbridge Wells, shut down its Vodafone store. People are sick of being ripped off by the rich. I think when this information is revealed, there could be a similar reaction in America. I've got an article coming out in The Nation in a couple of weeks that will show how Americans could replicate that UK uncut model.
If you were to look at the most basic and most offensive aspect, not just of tax dodging, but of American political culture today, whether it's special subsidies, waivers, tax loopholes, for corporations, perpetuation of health insurance monopolies that gives Americans health care that costs twice as much as anybody else in the world, multi-trillion-dollar subsidies for banks that don't lend to American businesses. How important is it that we have these little anecdotes, these little connections between a specific individual? As you pointed out, the Vodafone anecdote was an incredible catalyst to change the dialogue in your country. How important will the little anecdotes available in something like this WikiLeaks dump be to catalyzing real momentum against the obvious unfairness that plagues America today?
Well, I think it's really important because just imagine if you tried to do this. Next time you have a tax return, next time anyone watching the show has a tax return, send it back and say, oh, actually, I put my money in the Cayman Islands, and see what they say. You'll go to prison. Rich people don't go to prison for doing that. That's outrageous. And every American is facing cuts in their public services and higher taxes because these people, who are the people who can most afford to pay it, are refusing to do so. And, you know, one of their excuses is they say, oh, well, I made the money all myself. I didn't get it with any help from you. Well, I think the best answer to that is just imagine a thought experiment. Take one of these corporations. Let's imagine Safeway, which is stashing money in tax havens saying it doesn't want to pay. Let's just try for 1 month cutting off all the services that would be got through taxes that they refuse to pay. So when we won't collect their garbage, when there's a infestation of rats, we won't send the pest control people. When there's a thief, we won't send the police to arrest him. When there's a fire, we won't send the fire brigade. Then let them come back at the end of that month and tell us they do it all themselves. No, they do it with the money that every American pays, except them.
Listen, Johann, a pleasure. Keep us posted. We'll stay in contact as WikiLeaks vets the data, and we'll see what sort of anecdotes we come up with. Great to have you, as always. Johann Hari
Great to be with you, Dylan.
Thank you, Johann, out of The Independent in London.